ليلهم الخوف والكوابيس والخيانة، ليلهم الخوف والكوابيس والخيانة. نحنا قدامنا الصباح، نحنا قدامنا الصباح، نحنا قدامنا الصباح، نحنا قدامنا الصباح. ليلهم الخوف والكوابيس والخيانة، ليلهم الخوف والكوابيس والخيانة. ونحنا قدامنا الصباح، نحنا قدامنا الصباح، نحنا قدامنا الصباح، نحنا قدامنا الصباح.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us from wherever you are in the world. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge that this event is held primarily in Burulu on sovereign Wajak Noongar Boja. I'd like to pay my respects to elders past and present and to First Nations people across the continent of so-called Australia. Gedamna Elsabah Cultural Forum, as a group of settler refugees, extends our solidarity to First Nations people across this continent and across the world, and acknowledges that the systems which allow us relative safety here in so-called Australia are the same ones which create oppression and dispossession in this settler colony. We recognize that sovereignty was never ceded. This is and always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Gedamna Elsabah Cultural Forum is concerned with creative and cultural work and the edification of its intersections with civil political resistance. This forum is committed to human rights issues and the effective role of the arts in political and social change. This event we're holding today, during International Human Rights Day, is to raise awareness of the situation in Sudan and to practice active and radical solidarity. Today, you'll hear from poets across the world as they share their poems for Sudan. But Sudan is not the only place that's facing atrocities. So we would like to acknowledge all of the genocides, seen and unseen, everything that our siblings are experiencing across the world, whether it's in Chad or Palestine, and we would like to pay our respects and extend our solidarity. Today, you'll be hearing from fabulous poets and artists from around the world. And our next guest is actually myself, and it's always quite strange to introduce oneself. So please bear with me as I do that. My name is Rafeif Ismail. I'm an award-winning multilingual storyteller and editor based in Burulu, Western Australia. My work has been published in magazines and anthologies across Australia and internationally, with a debut novel forthcoming. I'm deeply committed to creating diverse works, spaces, and ethical storytelling. And as such, I'm the since 2020, I've been the managing director of Jet Press, and a publication that focuses on First Nations and people of colour voices within Australia, within so-called Australia and Aotearoa, New Zealand. And I am the co-founder of Long Trek Press, a speculative fiction publication founded in 2003 for writers in so-called Australia and Aotearoa, New Zealand. In 2022, I had the pleasure of co-editing Unlimited Futures, speculative visionary Black and Black fiction, published by Fremantle Press and Jet Press, an anthology of multilingual speculative fiction that was a conversation between First Nation Australians and Afro-Black settlers on this continent. And I am the recipient of the 2023 Martin Bequest Scholarship for Prose. So I'm very much a prose writer and not a poet, so please do bear with me. This poem I wrote I wrote this poem after the coup in 2021. I'd written it because there were no words to describe the loss of hope that came with, and the devastation that came with that event. So this poem is called Ghosts. I try not to speak with the words of ghosts, but sometimes my voice slips between here, there, and the thereafter. The protesters chant, Shuhadana ma matu, Aishin ma thawar, like a prayer. Our children become martyrs before they have the chance to live. The protesters chant, Shuhadana ma matu, Aishin ma thawar, like a plea. Our rivers are graveyards. The great poet Mahjoub Sharif said, Al-Sha'bi Habibu Shiryani, Ad-Dani Butaga Shakhsiya. And I remember that our people sometimes bleed out inside their own bodies. I think of bullets that shatter on impact. I think on the shrapnel of dispossession, the ricochet of trauma, generation after generation after generation after generation with no exit wound. Al-Sha'bi Habibu Shiryani, Ad-Dani Bitaga Shakhsiya. The protesters filled the streets, surging like Nile tides, unquenchable in their thirst for Hurriya, Salam, wa Adala. The hymnal chants carry with them the years, the memories, the loss, their ululations, rising, falling, and rising again, like resistance, like resilience. We will never go back. And yet I am asked to separate the words, to separate the worlds, to walk away from the footsteps of titans and ignore the sounds of resistance, rebellion, rebuilding, to fill the mold of a world that prizes silence more than peace, freedom, and justice. How dare you ask that of me? So that's the first poem, Ghosts. The second poem that I'll be sharing is a poem that was written when I was a lot younger. I wrote it in 2016 and published it in 2018. And I think that unfortunately, it's still relevant now, especially as we look at the multiple genocides across the world. So in this poem, I'm dedicating it to every dispossessed young person and every young person who is waiting and working towards freedom. We send you our children, our hopes, our dreams, our futures. You return them, bent and broken, a breath away from shattering. And you have the gall to ask, why are you all so overprotective? We're the ones who piece their bodies back together. We're the ones who scrub their blood off the floor. And yet, still, you have the gall to ask, why won't they let it go? Why won't you let it go? We hold on tight because in these moments of joy, of pain, in these moments of joy and pain and laughter, which become empty spaces in photographs, if for an instant our children slip our grasp, we send you our children full of hope. We send you ourselves full of hope. You send back body bags. And just one last poem. It's a heavy thing to carry, the weight of language, both living and lost. It's fine, in parentheses, a lie. Sometimes when the silence is too loud, when stumbling between bilingual thoughts leave me adrift between here, there, nowhere, I try to remember how to shape my mouth around hope without it burning with the strain. Hurriya salamu adala, in parentheses, always sincere. It's a jarring thing, the loss of language, gradually fading like earth under concrete going dormant. How do you describe life waiting to spring forth, hampered by immutable barriers? Al-Madaniyya khiyar al-Sha'b, and it's an old thing, that language of loss. Easy in the worst ways. We have phrases and formulations because they are gone, 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 never to speak again. Phrases that mean nothing but everything, because worse than grief is grief in isolation. And I wonder sometimes, will someone speak for me when I am earth once more? Will they shape me alive again in stories, in thoughts, or will I be forgotten, remembered in fragments that carry weight but lose meaning? Will I transmute into what I cannot speak, or will my voice still sound over foreign and familiar homes? Thank you so much.
ليلوم الخوف والكوابيس والخيانة، ليلوم الخوف والكوابيس والخيانة، نحنا قدامنا الصباح، نحنا قدامنا الصباح، نحنا قدامنا الصباح، نحنا قدامنا الصباح. ليلوم الخوف والكوابيس والخيانة، ليلوم الخوف والكوابيس والخيانة، ونحنا قدامنا الصباح، نحنا قدامنا الصباح، نحنا قدامنا الصباح، نحنا قدامنا الصباح.